The universe had a standing rule: don't wake Earth. Every species that clawed its way to the stars found the warnings engraved into dead moons, whispered in the static of radio bursts, buried in data caches left by races that no longer existed. The message was always the same. Earth sleeps. Let it. But the Kelvar thought they were different. They're primitives, High Commander Zesh proclaimed, gazing at the holographic display of Sol 3. A relic world stagnant for centuries. We take it now, and the sector belongs to us. His war council murmured their agreement. No signals, no fleet, no expansion beyond their own system. Earth was alone, unremarkable, abandoned by its children. What was left but to claim it? No empire had ever ruled this sector, because no empire had ever been foolish enough to try. Zesh saw it as opportunity. The Kelvar descended in force. A fleet of planetary siege vessels darkened Earth's orbit, blotting out the sun over its greatest cities. Atmospheric thrusters roared as troops descended, weapons primed for an easy conquest. Their orbital scans found no defences, no orbital weapons, no response. Earth remained silent. The Kelvar took it as proof of victory. They landed in the heart of the old capitals. Empty streets stretched for miles, vast megastructures abandoned to time. Ancient vehicles lined roads like bones of a long-dead beast. No resistance, no response. The first sign that something was wrong came when the patrols stopped reporting. Zesh had positioned elite strike teams to move in tandem, securing key infrastructure in synchronized sweeps. But one by one, units vanished. Communications went dark with nothing but a hiss of static. No distress calls. No reports of enemy contact. Just silence. Surveillance drones scoured the ruins, finding nothing. No bodies. No equipment. Just empty streets where entire platoons had once stood. Zesh demanded an explanation. His officers scrambled for one. Then the laughter started. It came from every direction at once. A low chuckle at first, drifting through the air as if carried by the wind. Then more voices joined, amused, mocking. It spread through their comms like a plague, slipping past encryption, overriding security locks. It echoed from abandoned buildings, rattled through their warships in orbit, whispered through the very walls of their command center. They shut off external transmissions, but the laughter only grew louder. The Kelvar still had no enemy. No battle had been fought, no blood had been spilled, yet their invasion force was shrinking by the hour. Zesh ordered full withdrawal. The Kelvar would regroup in orbit, assess, replan. The warships prepared for evacuation, transports descending to extract ground troops. Hundreds of thousands of warriors rushed for the retrieval zones. None arrived. The pilots aboard the transports watched in horror as their comrades ran toward them, then vanished mid-step. One by one, entire regiments disappeared, weapons and armour clattering to the ground where they had once stood. Their forms faded like mist under a rising sun, not a trace left behind. The pilots, paralysed by confusion, locked the hatches and prepared for emergency takeoff. Then the laughter seeped into their ships. The crew screamed as shadows moved between them, shapes that their eyes refused to comprehend. Consoles blinked with ghostly figures, hands of darkness reaching through metal as if it were water. The last transmission from the fleet before it went silent was a single voice, trembling and hollow. They were never gone. They were waiting. Zesh and his remaining officers barricaded themselves in the command center, the last Kelvar stronghold on Earth. Every sensor array, every combat drone, every scrap of technology at their disposal found nothing. No life signs, no movement. And yet something was there. A knock echoed against the reinforced doors. Not a blast, not a forced entry attempt. A single, deliberate knock. Then another, and another. Rhythmic, taunting, as if waiting for permission to come inside. Zesh raised his weapon, ignoring the cold that slithered down his spine. He barked an order to his remaining forces, but no one moved. They were gone. His officers, his guards, his entire command crew vanished between one breath and the next. The room was empty, except for him, and the door was opening. Zesh backed away, pulse hammering in his skull. The reinforced door groaned open inch by inch, revealing nothing but darkness beyond its threshold. No invader, no force. Just a gaping void that stretched deeper than it should. His fingers tightened around his weapon, instinct screaming at him to fire. But at what? The air beyond the door swallowed light, absorbing the glow from the overhead panels like a black hole. His breath felt heavy, the atmosphere pressing down like an unseen weight. Then a footstep sounded inside the room. Not his own. Zesh spun, aiming his rifle at empty space. His vision blurred, shapes flickering in and out of existence at the edges. The walls pulsed, not physically, but perceptibly, as if something vast and ancient was stirring just beyond the limits of his understanding. His comm earpiece crackled. "High Commander, respond." It was Vexel, the last Fleet Admiral still alive in orbit. His voice was strained, laced with something Zesh had never heard from him before. Fear. "I'm here," Zesh answered, forcing his voice to remain steady. "We lost the rest of the fleet. One moment they were on sensors, the next gone, not destroyed, just missing. The flagship is the only vessel left, and I don't know how long we have." Zesh exhaled sharply. "Prepare for immediate extraction. If you can lock onto my signal, do it now." "That's the problem," Vexel said, voice now a whisper. "We can't. The planet isn't letting us." A chill ran through Zesh's bones. He had led planetary campaigns before. No resistance meant easy victory. But this wasn't resistance. It was something else, something patient. The darkness beyond the door shifted. It wasn't empty after all. Something moved within it, its outline indistinct, neither fully present nor absent. It watched him, though it had no eyes. Zesh took a slow step back, trying to keep control of his breathing. "Who are you?" he demanded. "What is this?" The answer came not in words, but in understanding. A message that slammed into his mind like a tidal wave. Earth does not belong to you. It never has. His knees nearly buckled under the weight of it. The presence before him wasn't just speaking. It was showing him the rise and fall of civilizations. Empires that had touched this world and vanished. Some had conquered planets. Some had built wonders. None had survived after setting foot on Earth. He saw the warnings carved into asteroids, the distress calls buried in time. The others had not failed to heed them. They had thought, like the Kelvar, that Earth was abandoned. Earth had never been abandoned. A new sound joined the omnipresent laughter. Whispers. Countless voices speaking in unison. Not just one entity. Many. An entire force. Hidden beneath the surface. Beneath perception. Waiting. Zesh's grip on his weapon trembled. He could fire. But what good would it do? The others had tried. He saw it now, flashing through his thoughts. Entire fleets reduced to drifting husks. Armies erased in an instant. Their technology. Their power. Nothing had saved them. "Hi, Commander," Vexel's voice cut through the haze. "What do we do?" Zesh knew the answer before he spoke it. "Leave." "But you—" "Leave," Zesh repeated, his voice raw now. "If the ship is still there, get as far from this system as possible. Do not look back. Do not try to return. Do not speak of this place." The presence in the doorway stirred. The laughter had stopped. The silence that followed was far worse. "Understood," Vexel said after a long pause. Then the line went dead. Zesh exhaled, stepping back until his spine pressed against the cold metal of the command console. The figure in the darkness did not follow. It didn't need to. "You were always going to lose," it said, and this time the voice was audible, ancient, and knowing. "You just didn't know it yet." Zesh opened his mouth to respond, But the words never came. The lights in the room flickered and died, leaving nothing but the endless dark. Vexel watched from the bridge of the last remaining Kelvar warship as Earth loomed below. The planet seemed unchanged, its blue and green hues deceptively serene, yet its silence was an abyss, swallowing fleets, devouring legions, leaving only unanswered warnings. Zesh's final order echoed in his mind. Leave, do not return. The helm officer turned. Commander, we're still locked in the planet's gravitational field. Something is interfering with our jump drives. Vexel clenched his fists. Run a system-wide diagnostic. Find whatever's blocking us and cut it loose. The crew worked frantically. Every scan showed nothing. No enemy ships, no planetary defences, nothing. Yet the ship remained bound, as if unseen hands gripped its hull. Then the whispering began. It spread through the corridors, leaking into every communication channel. Not static, not interference. Voices, amused, curious. They stayed too long. Vexel spun to his officers. Seal all comms, shut down external feeds. No transmissions in or out. Sir, we've lost control of internal security, an officer shouted. Doors are locking at random. Crew members are disappearing. The main viewport flickered, distorting the image of Earth. The screen pulsed, as something deep within the planet stirred. Not a ship, not a weapon, something older, a presence. Vexel felt it. Pressing against his mind, sifting through his thoughts, the knowledge it carried was vast and unknowable. It was not an invader. It was the guardian of something far greater. Commander, the helm officer whispered, voice trembling. The logs, the fleet's data archives, they're changing. Vexel rushed to the display. The records of their invasion, their losses, their communications, altered, as if they had never come at all, as if their empire had never touched this place. The planet was erasing them. Initiate emergency jump, Vexel roared. Full power to the engines. The ship groaned, its very structure resisting the attempt to flee. The voices in the comms turned from whispers to laughter, mocking. You were warned. A blinding force surged through the ship. The lights flickered. Crew members vanished before Vexel's eyes, consumed by the same unseen force that had taken the ground troops. He stumbled, gripping the edge of the command chair as the bridge trembled. Then, for the first time, Earth spoke. You thought us asleep. You thought us forgotten. The voice was not singular. It was layered, built upon echoes of countless civilizations, voices of the lost, of those who had come before, and never left. We were waiting. Vexel slammed his fist on the console. We had no quarrel with you. The presence in his mind seemed amused. But you came. The hull of the ship screamed. The metal twisted as something unseen coiled around it. Not a weapon, not gravity. The very fabric of reality shifted, bending at Earth's will. The fleet had not been destroyed. It had been consumed. And now it was their turn. Vexel gasped as his own body began to dissolve. The laughter faded into silence. His final thought was not of fear, but understanding. No empire ruled this sector, because Earth did. The last Kelvar ship vanished. No wreckage, no remains, no record of its existence. Earth's skies were empty once more, its surface untouched. The galaxy would never know what had happened. Another warning left to drift, waiting for the next foolish empire to ignore it. And Earth would wait, as it always had. Most important scene in the first part. The critical moment in the first part occurs when the Kelvar invasion force begins to disappear without a trace, and the eerie laughter spreads through their communications. This scene establishes the horror and mystery of Earth's true nature, transforming what seemed like an easy conquest into a nightmare with no clear enemy. It foreshadows the unseen force lurking beneath the surface, emphasizing that Earth has never been abandoned. It has merely been waiting. Most important scene in the second part. The defining moment of the second part is when Zesh experiences a sudden and overwhelming understanding of Earth's true power through a flood of visions. He sees that every past invader has been erased, not just destroyed, but completely removed from history. This moment solidifies the stakes, revealing that Earth is more than a battleground. It is a force beyond comprehension, capable of rewriting reality itself. Zesh's realization of their inevitable failure marks the turning point in the story. Most important scene in the third part. The climax of the story happens when Earth directly speaks to Vexel, confirming its awareness and dominion over the sector. The ship's crew vanishes one by one, and their very records begin to change as if they had never existed. This moment cements Earth's position as an entity beyond war and resistance. It does not fight, it erases. The final revelation, that Earth has always been waiting and will continue to do so for the next foolish empire to challenge it, leaves a lasting, haunting impact on the reader. The silence over Earth remained undisturbed. The Kelvar were gone, just as so many before them had been. No debris, no evidence, no memory. Beyond what Earth allowed to linger, the cosmic void once again held its quiet vigil over Sol 3, a planet that appeared untouched, unremarkable, its history seemingly uneventful. Far beyond the sector, in the distant reaches of the galaxy, the empires continued their endless struggles for dominance. Trade routes flourished, wars ignited and burned out, species rose and fell. None of them spoke of Earth. It was not a strategic location, not a source of valuable resources, not a threat. It had no place in the interstellar maps of conquerors and explorers. But there were those who remembered. Among the drifting wreckage of lost civilizations, among the forgotten corners of dying worlds, fragments of ancient warnings remained. A cryptic log on a derelict vessel, floating through an unnamed nebula. A message carved into an asteroid where no ships travelled. A garbled transmission, barely decipherable from the edge of a black hole's event horizon. They all spoke of the same thing. Do not wake Earth. The warnings never spread far. They were dismissed as myths, the raving echoes of extinct species. Yet in hushed whispers, the oldest races, those who had weathered eons, understood. The great powers of the galaxy avoided Sol 3, not out of ignorance, but out of wisdom, because the universe had learned the truth. Earth was not asleep. It was waiting.